What's going on, everyone? It's Sheena, aka Sheenapreneur, your favorite veteran. I wanted to do a quick video about some of the things that, of course, with the changes in the government and etc., I wanted to just reinforce some of the things that I always talk about in my videos. So let's get to it. Okay, so, I feel like you all didn't listen. You all didn't listen to me. Now, even though I preach about federal contracting, local contracting, and corporate contracting, I think it's still important for everyone to note that, you should always have everything in order and everything in line. Similarly to during the COVID time period where people were saying that they weren't able to get the EIDL loan or they weren't able to get the PPP, the ones who were doing it legally, because a lot of you all don't have your paperwork together. So I just want to give a couple of little tips on how to ensure that you are keeping records, keeping your documents, and keep thinking forward, because I know a lot of this stuff can be super scary, especially if you don't know how to dissect exactly what's being issued by way of executive orders, etc. But just wanted to give you a couple of little things of, y'all didn't listen, but give you a couple of things that can maybe help you along this journey. So the very, very first thing that's probably pretty obvious to those who follow me quite often, and that is to diversify your contracting. So if you're only focused on federal, especially with what's going on right now, you may want to pivot or expand more into the local and the corporate governments. Now, there are a lot of companies that are corporations, corporate companies such as Target and AT&T, etc. And I know for sure that Target got rid of its DEI program. I'm not sure about AT&T, but nonetheless, there are several companies who remove their DEI, and so that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to not ever use any diverse business like a black or a female or veteran company. It just means that they are no longer putting money behind the DEI program. Now, I have read executive orders. I've talked to multiple attorneys. I have read the White House correspondence, and it's all pretty much stating that they're encouraging companies that are 500 million and below to also remove their DEI programs. But some of the publicly traded companies or companies that are 500 million, even up through a billion and billion plus, that they are more or less mandated. And I'll put the reference down in the description. But basically ensuring that you are trying to diversify your portfolio and not just focus on corporate or not just focus on federal, because even some of the federal things are filtering down to the local. So it just companies that didn't really want to engage in certain aspects of the FAR regulations or even some of the DEI practices, most of those they're just going to cut them loose. But just always remember that small business is also a set aside, if you will. It's a set aside for the federal, but it's also a consideration for the local side and a consideration for the corporate side. So that's number one. Number two is ensuring that you have your paperwork together. And by paperwork, I mean your legal business stuff. You're mostly going to need that if you've already started in government contracting. For those of you who are brand new and haven't bid on anything, haven't registered anything, you may not have all your documentation together. So those things are your articles of organization or incorporation if you incorporated your business, your EIN, your business license if you need it, which most of the time you will need it eventually, especially if you're doing local contracting. Ensuring that you have your filing your taxes, ensuring if you're going to register in the portals that you register and you're providing whatever documentation that particular agency, whether it's federal, local, or even corporate, is asking for. And that typically is going to be your legal documents and your tax information. Sometimes they ask for financial information like your bank statements, your P&L, your profit and loss, or your balance statement. They ask for a lot of stuff. So make sure that you have those documents already together, or at least be able to draw them up quite quickly. So the next thing would be building your partnerships. Right now is the best time to latch on to an established company. If you're brand new, I've mentioned this time and time again that had I really, maybe if I had a good opportunity when I first started, I would have started as a subcontractor instead of being a prime contractor, because you are able to, all the onus is off of you as a brand new business, and you're like less than a small business, you're like less than a micro business, and you're taking on such a tremendous debt, you're taking on tremendous a responsibility, and it's easier to have an established company be the prime contractor and just filter the information to you as needed, and then also you get your money sometimes a lot quicker. So that's one of the things, is like really building those strong partnerships. I talk, some of this stuff is going to be redundant because you've heard me talk about it in other videos for other situations, but some things change and some things remain the same, and that is something that is super important for you to ensure that you're listening. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not nervous about the changes as much because we have always pivoted. We've always moved. We never got comfortable as a company. Almost 8 years in for Foresight Industries and almost 3 years in for Sheenapreneur. I'm always trying to forward think about, what if this changes? What if this happens? How am I going to, find a loophole, or how am I going to make up for it? How am I going to find something else? So you never want to get fully comfortable with anything. There's going to be some contracts that are so massive and so large that, you can almost feel really comfortable, but you don't ever want to just settle, because these things can be canceled at any time. If you did not watch my video that I did with Carl Gibo and Lanisha Gilmore, two attorneys that are very inundated in the government contracting legal space, they had clients who lost their contracts, and they still are saying, keep pushing, keep moving. So if the experts are saying it, we're just going to keep pushing and we're going to keep moving. One of the main things that Lanisha said in the attorney video that I did is that her clients are forward thinking now. And I think that for those who are not forward thinkers as much, and you just kind of live in the moment always, that was a great point that she brought up, that her client is saying, okay, when this contract, since my contract was not canceled, it's still going, it ends in 2 years, should I ask for an increase now in order to have that written into the new contract if we do get renewed for a second contract? Because you can get a 3 to 5 year contract essentially, and then get renewed for another 3 to 5 years as well. So that's not uncommon. So forward thinking, especially if you're in a niche, or you've been working in this contract for years and years and years, that's not really the issue when it comes to any of these executive orders about tenure, how long companies have been doing a contract for a company, because you never know what it's necessarily for. But definitely try to be as close to the contracting officer and or the buyer as much as you can, because they're learning too. A lot of them don't know. They're federal employees, state employees. They may have been doing their job for a very long time or a very short time, and they don't know what any of these changes mean because they have never been done before, not to this magnitude. So you want to stay as close to those agencies as possible. And so the last thing I want to say is stay resilient. Always be pivoting, always be moving, always be shaking, okay? You want to make sure that you are not getting so wrapped up in, oh my goodness, what's going to happen as a business owner. Employees is different. That's a totally different conversation. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to get into federal employees and all that stuff. But when it comes to your business, as a business owner, you have to be resilient anyway. You have to pivot and move and shake anyway. So this is a kind of a rapid blow to a lot of companies. And I sympathize with anyone who has lost a significant amount of their revenue. Like I can only imagine. So you just have to stay resilient and stay uncomfortable as far as not putting all your eggs into one basket with one contract, and just continue to build relationships, continue to ensure that your documentation is up to date, etc. I actually have a guest that's going to be coming on in a couple of weeks, and he mentioned that there was a 8-figure contract that a contractor lost out on because their documentation was expired and they didn't know. And they weren't, at that moment, they weren't able to issue it to this company because their documentation, and this was a state contract or a city, it wasn't federal, and they weren't able to renew that contractor because they let their documentation expire. Something that simple, they missed out on $10 to $99 million. That's crazy. I didn't get the exact amount. He did say 8 figures. And so that's unfortunate, but that's, you all have to listen to those who have done this before, and be okay with taking advice from those who have walk the walk barefoot, okay? Walk the walk with no coat on, barefoot, and have done this for a while. And that can show you proof. Anyone who has followed me for a while, I take you guys on my journey. I'm still in the trenches. You know, I'm backed up a little bit, but I still stay involved in my company, because sometimes when you back up too much, then it gets lax, and then you gotta have, you know, I have great people, but you know, as far as forward progression with the company, can we just like let everything just go and just stay where it's at without me really working any day? Yeah, but that's not how I operate. I'm always keeping my head on a swivel to ensure that we are able to keep food on the table. So just want to give a quick little video on mainly a couple of things you can do to ensure that you're staying in the fight. That's all we can do. Of course, my course, GovConNOW, teaches you about federal contracting, local contracting, corporate contracting. As I get new information, I really want to share that with you all, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. The link is in the description as well. I'll share more short videos and more tips on Instagram than I do on YouTube, because YouTube's restrictions are pretty strong, and so it makes it a little difficult to share certain things. I might have like a 20 slide presentation that is really valuable information, but then YouTube only lets me do 10 slides. So then I'm like, well, there's no point in putting it on there. Nonetheless, the course information is also in the description. And also, I have my GovCon Moneymakers community, which is 100% free, where people are sharing information and linking up and partnering together and doing JVs and doing all great things. So that link is in the description as well. Please make sure you like, comment. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. Some of the videos can get lost in everything else that's going on, because we're talking about government. It really helps the algorithm if you guys like, share, and comment on this video. Any comments you want to leave, like Sheena, you're the best, or if you want to say thank you for this information, it truly helps, especially right now with all the different search terms that are going on. And you know, I want to make sure I'm getting you guys as much information as possible, even to new people, and share it with someone that you think might find it valuable. So until next time, you all, it's your favorite veteran.